All right, are we all set? Okay, everyone, we're ready to go.
Hey,
They're too busy talking.
There's-
to me. We have a very enthusiastic crowd. Welcome, everyone. I wish I had them.
we're gonna begin soon. We're gonna begin.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Lori Cleveland, the Executive Director of the Sourland Conservancy, and I'm so happy to see all these friendly faces here tonight and online. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm really thrilled because tonight could be a big night for amphibians. So on your way home, please try to take the big roads. If it should be pouring by the time we leave here, and that's a perfect time for amphibians to be crossing. So if it is raining, please be sure to try to take heavily traveled roads on the way home. Don't take the back roads. Don't take your shortcut to get home. Try to take a big road that has lots of traffic, because likely it has less amphibians who will be trying to cross tonight, and certainly it'll have less amphibian crossing guards. So thanks to our amphibian crossing guards who may be taking their posts right now to count those amphibians as they make their way from their winter home to their natal vernal pool. So good luck to everyone. Stay safe. Before we get started tonight, I'd like to thank a few people. I'd like to thank the Watershed Institute for partnering with us to present this series, opening their doors and welcoming us all into their lovely home. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Sourland Conservancy staff and volunteers who are here tonight. They work really hard to plan these educational seminars, and we really just couldn't do it without them. So please say hi on your way out and give them a little pat on the back, because this is the last of this series, and we'll be sorry to see them go until the next batch. But I know they're already starting to work to plan on new series for the fall, so stay tuned. I'd also like to thank everyone here and at home for supporting the Sourland Conservancy's work. You may have received our newsletter today. Please take a look at that. We're asking folks to sign a petition right now to let the State Planning Commission know that we would love for them to recognize the Sourlands as an area of critical state concern. So if you haven't signed that petition yet, please do, and please do share it with your friends, because we really want to show a force. Hey, the Sourlands is important and it needs the state's help. It needs all our help. We've lost over 1 million trees. Some of you may know we've been working really hard to plant trees. We've planted over 55,000 trees together. So thanks to our members for supporting that work. And the beaches are not going to make it. So the ash are gone now, and beach leaf disease is in the Sourlands. It has reached us, and as far as I know, we're going to lose them all. In some ways, that could be more serious than the loss of the ash, because even though there were so many ash trees, they were not located in historic forest in the Sourlands. The beach are really in those what we would call primary forests of the Sourlands. So when they die, the sunlight will hit the ground, and native seeds that have been waiting in the seed bank for that moment are going to be really thrilled and likely pop up and be consumed by the deer. So we are working hard to put up fences in these historic forests to try to preserve some of those Sourland ecotype plants that are so important for our wildlife here. So thank you again for supporting that work. Don't want to bring us all down, but there are so many things that we can do. And there's so many things that are going on in the world today. I just want to stress, don't lose hope, because this is a hopeful time for us. There's so many things that we can all do to support the wildlife here and health and human health and well-being too. So think about what you can do during these times. And one thing that we can all do is plant native in a flower pot, in a window box, or support the planting that we're doing in public preserves, because that's so critical. We've got 57 state listed threatened and endangered species here, and a lot of them are specialists and they need those native plants. So we're all going to listen really carefully to Rosalind when she tells us exactly what to do at home so that we can help support our own ecosystem upon which we all depend for survival. So we'll all be listening very carefully. Speaking of Rosalind, I would like to welcome our speaker. Rosalind Doremus
There you go.
has lived in New Jersey her whole life. As a child, she and her sisters practically lived in their big backyard, playing in their hideouts and sneaking vegetables from their dad's garden. Dad, sorry if you're watching. Her mom, her mom would bring her around the yard, pointing out different plants and flowers, and then wait patiently until a daughter would name the plants correctly. Sounds familiar. Their vacations were spent camping or down the Jersey Shore. Needless to say, respect and adoration for nature has always been central in her life. Rosalind began working at nurseries at the age of 16, quickly and excitedly learning each plant that crossed her path, including Latin nomenclature, which I'm still working on, how big or how small a plant gets to be, where it should be planted. By 25, she had started working at Pleasant Run Nursery, where she not only broadened her plant palette, but also began to understand the true importance of planting native and green infrastructure. Learning about native plants came to be one of her biggest passions. At the age of 33, she was awarded Young Professional of the Year by the New Jersey Nursery and Landscape Association for her volunteer work and enthusiasm for the association. She's a certified nursery landscape professional, believing that continued education and networking with other industry professionals is of great importance. At 38, she opened My Backyard at Nectar's, our all home away from home, garden center in Titusville, New Jersey. It is here where she has found a home base for selling native and pollinator-friendly plants. She considers each customer a friend and hopes to make choosing the right plant for the right spot a little less scary for anyone who comes through the door. In her free time, Rosalind enjoys gardening in her own yard, photography, writing, and going hiking with her husband and 2 dogs. She also runs a Facebook gardening page in which she advocates for natives, but also strives to help people build a connection with the natural world around them. Thank you, Rosalind. Take it away.
Thank you. This is just so I'm Rosalind Doremus. I'm a certified nursery landscape professional through the New Jersey Nursery and Landscape Association. As the little profile says, I've been studying plants and horticulture for over 25 years now. So it's probably a bigger part of my heart than even the people that are in it. So here on the first day of spring, I'm here to celebrate with you all the winter garden. I'd like to thank you all for coming. The first question that I have is, whose favorite season is winter? Get out. So if you'll notice, that was only one hand out of, 30 people. And that's probably for a number of reasons. And that's because this is what we want winter to look like. We want to look out in our yard. We want to see snow covered on every branch. We want to see the sun shining on everything. And honestly, that's not always what it looks like. Here are some pictures from our yards. We have a fence line garden. This is all just perennials and grasses. Here outside of our house, we have a native inkberry hedge. And then here are just some big spruces, and then, some non-native evergreens that Matthew's dad's planted, but really make a great showing covered in snow. But what does winter really look like? Winter is brown. This is a meadow here in the Sourlands region with a trail and a spruce, but there's not a lot of color here. The truth about winter is, again, that it's brown, it's cold, it's wet, it's muddy, and there's not really a lot of color unless there's some painted butterfly house. Our winter gardens look like this. This is Pycnanthemum muticum. This is mountain mint. It's here covered in frost. It's not a lot of color, but this is what our gardens look like if we leave them up and standing. Here is a forest behind our yard, and here's a little creek that runs. And again, there's not really any color. There's brown, there's white, and that's just about it. Luckily for us, the 2025 color of the year brought to us by the Pantone Institute is Mocha Mousse. Mocha Mousse, as per the Pantone Color Institute, is supposed to provide thoughtful indulgence, harmonious comfort, feelings of contentment. The evocative soft brown or warming rich brown hue nurtures with its suggestions of the delectable cocoa, chocolate, and coffee, appealing to our desire for comfort. And here's some more Mocha Mousse for everybody in the garden. This first picture here is Schizocarium scoparium, that's a little blue stem. I'm sorry. The top picture is black-eyed Susan seeds, that's Rudbeckia. And then here below is New York ironweed. This is Vernonia novaborensis, which if you leave your seed heads up through the winter, they're going to provide structure in the garden. There's going to be sound and just textures. So you're going to have to find a way to embrace the Mocha Mousse, even if it is just one color. So whether you agree or not, your natural yard with brown seed heads, berry shrubs, and messy leaves is the favorite season for these winter birds. So here you have this little bird here on a dead tree trunk, this little guy in the middle with his friendly words, and then this guy here is just looking around for some seeds that may have fallen. So whether or not you are embracing the mocha brown, the birds are here and they love it just the same. How does winter feel to us? And then there's just this little cartoon, and this guy says to his wife, and he says, "Are you ever getting up?" And she says, "I'm going winter dormant. Wake me up when the crocus bloom." And then she says, "This winter, I'm learning a survival strategy from my plants." So I thought that was cute. Seasonal depression is a very real thing, but it's totally normal. There's less sunshine in the wintertime, and that's just pretty much a lack of vitamin D. And so you may think yourself lazy or flawed, yet your body is made up of almost exactly the same elements as the stars. Your bone composition matches the coral in the seas, and you, my friend, are ruled by the moon and the sun, whether you like it or not. So no, you are not lazy. Nature is simply pulling you to slow, like the life, floral and fauna around you. It is not your moment to rise. It is winter. You are wintering, and you are right on time. So how do we get through the winter? By changing the ways in which we look at winter, we can not only thrive during the winter season, but we could also learn to embrace it. And this paragraph here on the left is from Robin Wall Kimmerell. She's the author of Braiding Sweetgrass, but her newest book is Gathering Moss. And right in her introduction, she has this lovely sentence here. It says, "I'll never forget my first look at snowflakes through the magnifying lens, spangling the woolly sleeve of her navy blue coat like stars in a midnight sky. Magnifold tenfold, the complexity and detail of a single snowflake took me completely by surprise. How could something so small and ordinary as snow be so perfectly beautiful? For the first time, but not the last, I had a sense that there was more to the world than immediately met the eye. I looked out at the snow falling softly on the branches and the rooftops with a new understanding that every drift was made up of a universe of starry crystals." And here's a little dragonfly statue that's in our bird bath. So I invite you to come in and take a closer look of some winter seed heads. These are both New York ironweed. The photo on the right here is when it's covered in ice, and then on the left is just dried winter seed heads. That's a perennial. It probably gets 6 to 7 feet tall. I think we planted 5 when we first started our meadow, and now we probably have 1,000. New York ironweed provides wonderful seed heads for birds and also provides great habitat. Panicum virgatum is switchgrass. Here on the left is a variety called Shenandoah, which just has more red color than the straight species, but left up all winter long. You could see it provides a dense structure in the landscape. And then here on the right is just its seed heads glistening with ice. And again, seed heads, I probably will say this a million times in this talk, but they are food and habitat for all sorts of wildlife. Where should I point this? I could come closer, I just could see better. So this is our New Jersey American native holly. This is one of our few native evergreens. They'll probably get 30 to 40 feet tall and about 15 feet wide. They grow very pyramidal. On the left is a female American holly, and on the right is a male. You would need both to get fruit, but beautiful in the winter, whether they have snow or ice or not, because they really look like something. The fruit, again, are wonderful for all sorts of songbirds. And I noticed this winter that our females didn't have a lot of fruit, and I'm assuming that's because of the drought. So I don't know that anybody else saw that, but that's just something that I observed in my own yard. Did anybody else see that? Yeah, okay. Anise hyssop, Agastache funiculum, is not a New Jersey native, but it is a pollinator powerhouse. And then again, its seed heads in the winter are very important for birds. The picture on the left, you could see that there's all sorts of bird prints on the bottom, and then on the right is just the anise hyssop in front of other perennials in our yard. They're summer flowering and very fragrant. You could use their leaves to make tea, but here in the winter time, they're very important for wildlife. Sweet Bay magnolia, I believe, is native in more of the pine barrens part of our state, but they're still plenty hardy. Oh, that's fabulous. I was like, this looks like something now. So, sweet bay magnolias, they're a summer flowering semi-evergreen tree. They'll get 30 to 40 feet. This is a cultivar. It's called Moonglow. What's special about Moonglow is that it is going to retain its leaves through the winter. So it won't be a dense evergreen unless you really prune it to be so. But this is just, it would provide habitat and screening. If ours wasn't planted in the shade, I guess it would be more dense. And here it is just covered in ice. Inkberry, Ilex glabra, is another New Jersey native. These are evergreen. Shamrock is a female cultivar, just known for its more dense habit than the straight species. Inkberry will get 4 to 5 feet tall and probably 3 to 4 feet wide. They'll slowly colonize, which you can maintain. We're trying to grow ours together here as a formal hedge or a semi-formal hedge outside of our home. Females will get black fruit, but they would need to be pollinated by a male. At the garden center, we carry both straight species and shamrock. Shamrock is just a really popular traded cultivar, so this is kind of what you find the most of out there in the world. Here is Schizocarium standing ovation. This is a little blue stem grass that'll get 2 to 3 feet tall and about 18 inches wide. It's got blue foliage throughout the spring, summer, And then in the fall, you'll see all sorts of purples and oranges and yellows, and it's just a really showy grass. It needs good drainage, but this is a grass, again, that provides seed heads for birds, but it also provides materials for them to make their nests with, and that's also very important with ornamental grasses. Penstemon digitalis, here on the left, is covered in snow. This is foxglove beard tongue. It's semi-evergreen, which essentially means that it might just have a leaf or two. It's not really going to be super showy, but in the wintertime where everything is 50 shades of brown, this little bit of green is going to make all the difference on a snowy and cold day. It's going to make you feel like your garden's still there. Flowering dogwood, Cornus florida, is a native tree here in New Jersey. There tend to be more of an understory tree. That's where they want to be. A lot of people try and plant them in full sun. They do need some shade to help protect their leaves. Once mature, they have this really showy bark. It'll take a while for it to look like that. It'll take many years. But in the meantime, in the wintertime, you can enjoy the flower buds on the left which have a little tinge of pink to them, which to me is a color that if you get in close, you could really see and enjoy. Oak leaf hydrangea. Oak leaf hydrangea is Hydrangea quercifolia. This is a shrub that is native to the southeast. It's plenty hardy up here. It'll get, the straight species will probably get 6 to 8 feet tall, if not a little bit taller, and probably the same width. It has this wonderful showy bark, this peeling bark that's here on the left. On the right, here's its dried flower heads that persist through the winter. It's a summer flowering shrub, and even though it's native to the southeast, any sort of pollinators, they don't mind. They're still going to be all over it. It's one of these shrubs in our yard that blooms all summer, that's always covered in all kinds of different bees. And really nice fall color as well, deep reds and purples. Betula nigra is our native river birch. This is a water-hungry tree. It is adaptable to the drought. Here on the left, this is probably a cultivar that's called Durahheat, which is going to have more of a cinnamony bark and is more heat tolerant. And then here on the right is a cultivar called Little King, which is, I think, is it a witch's broom? Is that what it's called? Well, okay, so this is a true dwarf, so it's much more compact and a lot shorter than the straight species. So you could have a regular river birch that'll get to be 60 feet tall or so, and then you could have a variety like Little King that only tops out at 20 feet and still give you just as equally showy bark. Red twig dogwoods are also native here in New Jersey. They'll get 6 to 8 feet tall. They have green leaves all spring and summer. They have a white lace-capped flower, and they will get fruit. In the winter is when they really come to show, because underneath all their leaves, they have these bright red twigs. And there's just not really anything in the winter landscape that has color like that as far as I'm concerned. That's probably one of our showiest native winter shrubs, I would say. And of course, winterberry, Ilex verticillata. You could see the picture here on the right is just covered in birds. So hello. The picture on the left is our winterberry covered in snow. So it looks great with or without snow, and it's always going to provide food for birds. Winterberries, the straight species will probably get 8 to 10 feet tall and wide. They're pretty open and airy. They're quite deer resistant, but I never promised that to anybody. They're really wet site tolerant, but they're one of the most adaptable shrubs in the New Jersey landscape, handling drought and clay soil just fine. Witch hazel, Hamamelis virginiana, is another New Jersey native. Witch hazel is a shrub that is good for part shade. They'll get 12 to 15 feet tall and wide. When they're younger, they're more dense, but as they mature, they really open up and expand. They flower late fall, and then sometimes this picture here on the right is it's a cross. So the one on the left is the straight species. The one on the right is a cross, so you could see more red in the flowers. They'll just flower later, and you can see the snow on it. Witch hazels are very fragrant, and they're really enjoyable. And it's one of those shrubs that in the wintertime, you're probably going to want to have it out your window so you could look outside and enjoy it all winter long. More seed heads, please. Oh, how did that? Okay. So the writing here is messed up. On the left here is Baptisia australis. That's a New Jersey native. It's blue false indigo. It's got blue pea-shaped flowers in the springtime. It's got green foliage in the spring and summer, and then in the wintertime, you're left with these large brown seed heads that, when the seeds persist, those seed heads will rattle in the wind and give you another winter interest for your ears. On the right is Hibiscus machutos. That's our common rose mallow. When I first planted our meadow, I said, oh, it's real wet back here. We need some of these hibiscus. Well, it turns out we have really heavy clay. Just because a plant likes wet soil does not mean it likes clay. Hibiscus do not like clay because their leaves just droop all summer long. They didn't flower as much, but I collect the seed every year and I share it with friends. The winter seeds of Hibiscus machutos are a favorite to ducks. Another fabulous shrub, which is native in the Northeast and pretty much throughout all of North America. This is buttonbush. Buttonbush has fantastic fragrant flowers all summer long. It's visited by all sorts of butterflies and different bugs that some of them I don't even recognize. It provides fabulous fragrance all summer. And then in the winter, it's just got their little seed heads that hang on. So again, another winter interest with seed heads. Eastern white pine is very common here in New Jersey. It's an evergreen. Leucothea axillaris here on the right is dog hobble. This is native to the southeast. It's evergreen. It's a mounding shrub. It'll probably get 4 to 5 feet tall and 3 to 4 feet wide. It's got long white raceme flowers that are fragrant and bloom around the same time as Andromeda do. So this is an early spring bloomer. It doesn't like full sun or wind, so you're going to want to keep this shrub protected, but it's a pollinator favorite and it's very deer resistant for our rich New Jersey forest soils. And of course, pokeweed, where even I don't know the Latin name, but I recognize pokeweed anywhere. We have the pokeweed growing outside of our window, and I probably should chop it down, but I really enjoy just to watch the birds picking at the seeds all winter long, or all summer long. So that'll probably stay longer than it should. And a touch of green. So again, some perennials and sedges that are native and considered to be semi-evergreen. Creeping phlox there on the left is an early spring bloomer, and it'll have foliage that persists through the winter. Here on the right is Cherokee sedge. This is a sedge grass for shade and moist soils. Both of these plants are pretty deer resistant. What's that?
I was wondering if that's your property, like have that.
Oh, that's Andrew Plunkett's, if you're familiar. So what are some good wintertime activities? You can go and tour a local nursery. The picture on the left are the greenhouses, or they're both at Pleasant Run Nursery actually here. So I worked here for 8 years before I opened up the garden center. And these are just some winter shots that I took. There's all the wagons that they used to pull big wholesale orders. And here on the right are some pussy willow that I thought framed the house really nice. Pussy willow are another early spring, but possibly late winter interest. They'll get substantially large if you don't cut them back every year. They could get up to 15 feet tall and wide. Those fuzzy silvery catkins, they only appear on females. So most of the plants that you find at regular nurseries are going to be female plants because the males aren't nearly as showy. So hopefully somebody one day will start growing them from seed. I don't typically see them often for sale, but I do carry females. You could go birding. And here are some pictures of the bald eagle. This is one here on the South Branch River that we would go see almost every day. And then we would drive over the bridge and we could see the pair of eagles. And then these are some photos that my friend Helen Grunman took. She's got better camera than I do. Here's another bird. I don't know who this guy is, but he sure is handsome. Is it? Okay, see, I don't know my birds. I could rattle off plants all day, but birds, I'm just like, oh, he's cool. There's this guy just hanging out in a tree, and then a bird feeder, and then another bird coming in for the landing. Yeah. Yeah, I used some friends' photos, you know, because I didn't have all of these. Here's some big woodpeckers on some ash trees. There's lots of food in those ash trees. And this is also a Pleasant Run nursery. This is a peacock. He's not a regular occurrence, but they're one heck of a farm animal, and they actually eat all sorts of ticks and other insects that we may not like. So if you can have a room for a peacock and a way to protect it, and you don't mind the noise, you can take a hike. So here we are, Matthew and our dogs at Joe Stala Park in Branchburg, New Jersey, and then Tripod Rock in Boonton, New Jersey. They actually have some, and this is no offense to the Sourlands that has phenomenal rock infrastructure, but it's equally as cool here in Boonton. And then some of the stones are actually used in Native Americans to kind of line up with the sun, and you could read more about it, but that's Tripod Rock. You could go scouting for big trees. There on the left is an American holly on our property, and the picture on the right is a giant sassafras. That's also at our home. This is at our grandparents' house that I was lucky enough to inherit. And this big sassafras it's just a huge part of me, and I'm really a sucker for a big tree. So here's an American sycamore on the left. This is a white oak on the right. That's Quercus rubra. A pin oak on the left, which is native in New Jersey. And then I think this was some huge sort of pine tree down in South Carolina, but just the size comparison to me is phenomenal between the tree and Matt here. And then, of course, when you find a big tree, say thank you to it. They're important. Trees do a lot. They filter our air, they clean our water, and they're home. They're home for so many birds and insects. You could follow a mossy trail. That's another thing you could do in the winter. Lots of mosses are evergreen, and they're easy to pick out in the winter landscape amongst the snow or amongst the leaves. You could follow animal tracks and see where they lead you. Yeah. Or you could visit a greenhouse. This is Morris County Farms in Denville, New Jersey. Visiting a greenhouse is a way to get a pinch of spring, even when winter is really the most brutal. The greenhouses are often 20 to 30 degrees warmer than outside, so sometimes I just have to go to one. You can make something with what nature provides. Here is what they call a dead hedge. Here's one that we're a smaller dead hedge border that I'm creating at our house around our bird bath. There's already some stumps that were existing, and I'm just using dead wood that I find around the property to create a border. What is a dead hedge? A wall or barrier or garden's perimeter made out of fallen branches and pruned saplings. Dead hedges can be used to create new borders or define a garden's edge. They can become a habitat for birds, small critters, and insects. Lower branches decompose over time, feeding even more insects and add even more organic material back into the soil, and they are a great way to utilize yard debris. Or you can make a snow angel, or you can try. This is our dog Monster, and those are just some dogs that I had in a previous life. You could take a polar plunge, or you can go to the beach. And that's just a play on words there. You could play hide and seek, but make sure you try and fit in with your surroundings. That's a red twig dogwood there, and there's a cardinal there hidden underneath a ledge, but his bright red color is giving him away. And if it's just too cold, you can stay inside, or you can enjoy winter through the window. Because the truth is, even if you're nice and warm inside, you will always be thinking about plants anyway. Like, why does my rhododendron look so cold? That's thermonesty, which looks like it's thermonasty, but it's the thermonesty. And that's just a plant's movement response in temperature change. So when it's cold, those leaves curl up. They give off a lot less energy because of water that may transpire. And it's also a way of protecting themselves. Or why do my beech and oak trees keep their leaves? That is marcescence, which is the persistence of a tree's leaves through the winter. Sometimes scientists think that could either be to protect a tree from cold weather and kind of provide extra insulation, or they also might think it would be to help deter deer from eating the young branches. And you could also ponder about, why do my bald cypress have knees? And I tried to find the answer to that, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I'm assuming it's to help them get water more easily or better oxygen. Because true gardeners will find a way. And the next couple of pictures will be about how to garden throughout the winter. You could make a winter container garden. So here are some wonderful container gardens done by Brittany O'Donnell Landscaping, who is a wonderful garden designer here in the Sourlands region. She does rain gardens, has a wonderful emphasis on natives. Here in her containers, she has different spruces and cypresses, but you could see the winter berries. There's even some juniper branches there on the left. There's yellow twig dogwood, which is also native. And then there's one of Lori Cleveland's favorites, the southern magnolia, can also be used in winter containers. There's also some birch stems in there. So a majority of those plants are native or near native, or, you know, a distant cousin. You could join Carrie Lloyd's seed sowing extravaganza. And this is a wonderful way to produce native plants in perennials mostly. Some people do different grasses and trees, although that may take a longer time. In winter sowing, you're just creating a small greenhouse. You're putting some soil in there, a little bit of water, You're going to drill holes on the bottom. You could sprinkle your seeds in. And then once you cover it up and it starts to warm up, like I said, it's a little greenhouse, and you'll have tons of little baby plants ready to go and be planted in the spring season. And hopefully you still have a reason to come visit me. Winter garden maintenance, less is more. There's really little to do in the winter garden as far as maintenance goes. Leaving the leaves, you're going to want to leave as much debris as you can, kind of as the natural world would have intended. Fallen leaves provide habitat and food for insects, birds, and reptiles. They work to prevent erosion as they decompose and increase soil health. You're going to want to leave up any dried stems and flower heads because, like I said, these are homes for birds, insects, and they also provide food. When is the best time to do spring cleanup? In an ideal world, you're not ever going to want to do this because before humans came along and this wasn't even happening. It comes to be that we like our yards to be neat and tidy. So the second best time would be probably mid-May as temperatures are rising into the 50s. If you're going to cut back your perennials, you're going to want them cut back between different heights of 12 to 18 inches. And this is going to allow for hollow stems for insects to lay their eggs in. And then the new growth is going to come up before you know it and really hide that growth that you did leave behind. The bottom line is that your yard is your yard. Even if you plant one coneflower, I think that that's a miracle. So if you're going to leave the leaves and leave your stems, then that's beautiful, but it's totally your call. Winter pruning. Winter is going to be the best time to prune your trees and shrubs, and this is because your trees and shrubs are dormant. There's no leaves, so it's easier to see the structure of your trees and shrubs, so choosing which branches you want to keep is going to be easier to do. And then pruning during the growing season stresses your plants out a lot and opens them to infection, and that's just kind of why winter is ideal. What to prune? So when it says suckering growth, this is going to be your growth that appears down at the bottom of the tree. Any dead and broken branches that are just kind of hanging like that, you could get rid of. Water sprouts are these vertical branches that are going right up. Those tend to appear after you do excessive pruning. They're going to interfere with the shape of your tree, so you can get rid of those. Split leaders, I would only get rid of in a young tree, because if you get rid of a split leader too late in a tree's growth, when it really starts to caliper up, it's just going to open it up and be a big wound. So you're not going to want to do that. I would only do a split leader when your trees are young. And then any branches to improve the structure and shape of your plants, and that's kind of your call. Whatever branch you don't like, if you want to remove it, you can remove it. Where to make pruning cuts. So if you start here at the ground, pruning here down at the bottom, that's going to open your shrub up and allow for better airflow. Pruning to a main branch is going to help you with the shape of your tree and again allow for better airflow. And that's also with the same as side branches. You're just kind of trying to make structural cuts. And then if you trim just above a bud set, that's going to allow for better branching. And these are just pictures of where exactly to cut, and don't stress yourself about this. This is just some examples. You don't want to cut too close to a leaf bud though, because you will lose that leaf bud. And then if you trim too high above it, you'll just have a little dead nub, which is unsightly, but only if you're standing right next to your plants. Thoughts on winter. Winter is one of the harshest times of the year. Changing your perspective on the winter and embracing the season will help get us through it. Find little patches of green to celebrate and fall in love with the 50 shades of brown. Say good morning to the sun every day and thank it for a new day. Seasons are cyclical. Winter is about peace and quiet, so breathe in the stillness. Winter is restorative. Enjoy the slowness and take a break. Winter is for reflection. Take the time to look back and look ahead. Winter is resilient. Despite the wind, despite the cold, nature always persists. And through winter, there is hope. We can always get through the winter knowing that spring is on the horizon. Winter is for planning. So what will you be adding to the garden this year? What birds do you want to attract? What insects do you want to attract? What different colors? What new structural piece of landscape do you want to add? These are all things that you might want to think about when you're planning ahead. You could think back about what your garden was missing. This is just a shout out to the garden center. We always have a current availability, so if you ever want a copy to see of what we have, we could send a list right over. Well, who is a member of the Sourlands Conservancy in here? Wonderful. So if you're a member of the Sourlands Conservancy, we're having a secret sale for you this weekend. And this is, again, for members of the Sourlands and Watershed Conservancy. And of course, if you're here in this room or watching there on your computers, you could come in and shop our nursery at 10% off. Big thank you to the Sourlands Conservancy for inviting me to talk, for the Watershed for hosting. And a special thanks again to the Sourlands and Watershed. Thank you to the many friends who helped with these pictures. My husband, Matt, Eric Fleming for his dead hedge, Helen Grunman for her wonderful bird photographs, Marion Labos and her winterberry and birds, Brittany O'Donnell, Allison Parapiano, Andrew Plunkett, and Heidi Taylor. Thank you to our customers, because every plant purchased at the garden center serves as a ripple effect into the future for our planet. And together, one customer at a time and one plant at a time, we're all making a huge difference together. And one of my first customers that I ever remember, when I was 16, he was an older gentleman, and he really had a hard time even getting around the nursery, and he would kind of stumble up over the curb. But every winter, he would come in and buy plants, and then before he left, he would say, like the bed bugs say, if we can make it through the mattress, I will see you in the spring. And that's just something I could always, yeah. I always hear it. And then there's a little acrostic poem for March. May the early spring awaken your soul and remind you to celebrate the season with the hope and joy it brings. And thank you. I would love to answer any questions if there's time. Is there time?
Yes. Who's got a question?
Carrie Lloyd. I would do that in late February or early March, before you even start to see like your flower buds on your maples. Yeah.
Okay, so we just clarified that the best time to trim your trees would be in like late February, early March, or when the trees are dormant. I'm also wondering, those little like suckers that grow near the base of the tree in the previous image, why do we trim them for aesthetics or to help the plant?
Both, because these suckering, they're taking away from the energy that's going into the trunk. So you're going to want to prune them, and they also look a little unsightly. So
Gotcha. Thank you.
I actually leave them though on my ash trees because I have hope. Yes, Mary. Yeah.
In the winter?
Yes.
What species of oak would that be?
That's actually, many different oaks do that. Pin oak certainly does it. That's Quercus palustris, and then different oaks within the white oak family, your Quercus alba and your Quercus bicolor do that. And I'm sure a lot of them do. Quercus marilandica does. I think a lot of oaks do.
Okay, my other question was regarding the evergreen, the juniper berry evergreen.
Okay.
Is that that's native? To
Yes.
Massachusetts?
Yeah. Eastern red
And-
cedar.
And how tall does that get?
Probably like
Roughly.
30 to 40 feet tall at least.
Mhm.
They're slow growing, maybe 12 to 15 feet wide. You're not going to see that happen for a long time.
You mean the berries?
Oh, the berries? 5 years, 6 years, not when they're
Okay.
little babies. They take a while to fruit.
Okay, and when is the best time to plant them in?
Today.
Like March, today.
Yeah. Early April is fine. Fall is also a fantastic time for planting.
Okay. Did you have them in stock?
We'll be getting a load in from Pinelands Nursery tomorrow morning, so we will have them.
Question is, where can we get them?
It's a wet site plant, so I imagine along stream beds, river banks. Anybody else? Yes.
Split leader?
A split leader is when a tree wants to create a second trunk. And it's going to have a dominant trunk, which is really going to be the one in the middle, and then a second one might come off right next to it. And then you would want to prune that second one because it's going to weaken the tree over time. Good question.
I have so many tree questions. Okay, so
Yeah.
in my yard, I have a sycamore, and I'm starting. I'm on a slope, so I don't really know what's good erosion or not. There's, I mean, not
Yeah.
good erosion, but you know what I mean. What's normal and what's
Right.
erosion. So my sycamore, a lot of the roots are pretty exposed, and some of them are exposed enough that they're up. You can see maybe like it's a large sycamore, but I can see maybe 2-3 inches of the roots,
Yeah.
of the diameter of the root.
Right.
And I think to myself, like, is that something that I should put like wood chips on? Like, I want to turn it into
Yeah.
a shade garden anyway, but I worry that I'm going to cause the roots to rot if I,
Yeah.
plant over top of that.
It's my belief that a tree is going to do anything that it can to live, and it's going to correct itself in order to grow correctly. So if that's how it's growing, that's probably how it wants to grow. Maybe put a little bit of wood chips or soil around it, but not really on top of it if you're going to plant around it.
So it might not be the areas where the roots are so obvious, that's not going to be a good place for me to like pile up soil and plants. It sounds like.
I don't
Okay.
think that I don't,
Anything that's gonna smother. the
Yeah.
roots.
So don't smother the
What-
roots.
what's
Okay.
How's the tree performing?
It's incredible. It's huge.
It's the
Yeah.
most gorgeous tree you ever want to see. And
And-
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you may want to just plant in between those roots a little bit without disturbing too much soil. So you could take little plants and stick them in if
Yeah.
you want to make a shade garden. Shade garden under there, because that is I've seen Carrie's tree, I'm telling you, it's spectacular. And
Yeah.
so you don't want to damage the tree, but you can plant plants still. You don't have to not have your shade garden because you want those soft landings underneath trees. So you could put little ferns under there or just small little holes that you would dig, or even just drop seed and just let them grow, because that would be. Do you have other questions?
Yeah.
I've seen lots of sycamores along stream beds and where there are, what like the There's a river over here.
Yeah.
And they're very exposed because of the erosion, but the trees aren't really affected by that. They still maintain. They are more likely to fall eventually, but their life looks like they're like any other sycamore.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
John?
What do you do in the garden center, like to prepare for winter, and what do you do to sort of bring it back to life in the spring? Like, how much work is it, and are you there in the
Well,
winter at all, or?
Are you volunteering?
Sure, yeah. Absolutely.
Matthew actually helps out a lot with that. What we do is we group all the plants together in kind of a big pile. All the trees are laid over on their side. And then perennials are kind of built in around the edges for extra insulation. And then Matt comes in and he covers it with a layer of frost blanket, and then he covers it with an additional layer of plastic. We don't water at all through the winter. The plants are dormant. They don't need my help, and they don't even need me to worry about them, which is plenty nice. And then in the springtime or early February, no, the end of February, I'm sorry, we went in and uncovered everything, and we started spacing the plants out, which has allowed them to kind of wake up with our temperature swings this time of the year, making them more hardy for the spring planting season.
That is like the reason for natives are adapted to these temperature fluctuations. Even with global warming, you're gonna get a year that is cold like we just had. The worst thing for a plant is those swings in a winter where you're getting 60 degrees, but then diving down, because it doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know, is it supposed to stay dormant? Is it supposed to awaken for spring? And all the frost blanket and plastic, it's creating a little micro environment that tempers that fluctuation. In your own house, just mulch leaves. You're doing the same thing.
Right. And then for pots and stuff, I mean, I end up emptying a lot of pots and just, because I'm always afraid that ceramic pots are gonna crack, so I just.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't leave those outside at all.
Mm.
But the plastic is more than fine.
Great.
Uh-huh.
Oh, sure. Okay. Pro tip, if you live near a lake or marsh, winter is the perfect time to spot plenty of ducks, teals, merganser, and geese. They're everywhere. And that brings up a point too that I was thinking earlier when you were showing the little birds taking advantage of
Yeah.
the winter landscape, is that I have a bird feeder and I love to watch the birds. I mean, all winter long, they're coming and going. But when I started planting native at my house, I saw all kinds of different birds just rooting around in the leaves. So I have left mowed paths now through what used to be my yard and is now more of a native landscape. Thank you, Rosalind. But coming through, walking around through the landscape and seeing those birds rooting around, it's really much more fun for me to see all that activity than just to see, what I used to think was a beautiful
Yeah.
expanse of grass.
Yeah.
So it's changing over time and evolving, and so is my perception of what my yard is supposed to do for me and perform for me, but also for the wildlife. But it's also just so much more interesting to see all the visitors. And in the summer, yes, of course, my button bush is a magnet for yellow swallowtails, unbelievably covered with yellow swallowtails. But in the winter, there's all kinds of activity going on in there. And it's just so cool to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. To see them in their natural habitat and just kind of looking around as opposed to just hanging out in one place is a totally different experience.
Yes, very satisfying.
Yeah. Oh, she asked what makes plants deer resistant. I don't know.
Deer.
Deer Deer don't tend to like minty plants or things with a strong scent, so that usually helps to deter them from eating something. They also don't like plants that are super fuzzy on their tongue, so they might stay away from things like that, but you would be surprised that they don't care about thorns. So deer will eat roses and other things with, they'll even eat your spiny holly. So to say what they like and don't like is just, I'm like, I got to keep planting because it's tough to answer that question because
Yeah.
even what is deer
It,
resistant?
it depends on the deer pressure in your own landscape quite often. I
Yeah.
mean, there are far more deer in the Sourlands than the forest can sustain, and they're hungry, so they will eat things that aren't appropriate for them.
Yeah.
And it's not healthy for them, but to keep them from eating things, putting a physical barrier between them and the plant that you're trying to save, like a fence or a tree tube or something until it gets tall enough so that they can't kill it with over browsing it, is a good idea.
Yeah.
But deer off for me works really well too.
Deer off. Sometimes you could create
spray.
like matrix for them to try and figure out what plant they don't like and what they do like. I often plant things like in a bed of mountain mint that they won't even go near the mountain mint because they know they don't like it. And that helps to keep them away from, say, like a coneflower that happened to seed its way into there.
Yeah, sometimes even if you have a big brush pile or something, and you have something growing up in the midst of that, you just leave that brush in place and that'll be a physical barrier for the deer too.
Planted a bunch of, it's just in pots all along the bed, just to, they didn't want to necessarily plant herbs in the bed. But very fragrant stuff like you were talking about that seemed to work out.
Yeah, fragrant stuff.
Dog in the yard, that really works.
Dog.
I like very saplings, by deer.
Yeah.
Oh,
buck rub. Yeah. Yeah.
What we've done is strung strings from the trunk out, stakes.
Yes.
Around, and it
Yeah.
eliminates the problem completely.
Yeah. And I've seen people, they've created deer fence with bamboo stakes. So that would be a really cheap way to create a fence if you didn't have the money to put up one of these, 8-foot thing with 2x4s. So there are more inexpensive ways to create deer fencing.
So that dead hedge that Eric Fleming had built at the Sourland Conservancy that you had shown,
Yeah.
we really put that dead hedge up there to block some unsightly fencing materials, but it has a lot of function, as Rosalind was saying, but it could also be a free way
I don't know
to
where it went.
build a deer fence, in between whatever your plantings are that you don't want the deer to munch. You would just have to make it tall enough that they wouldn't want to jump over it, or that they couldn't see that they could jump safely over it. So that's another kind of trick for deer, is that if they can't see that they're going to be able to land safely and still get out, sometimes that's a deterrent too. Oh, there are those oak leaves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bless you. Yeah. Any other questions? This was fabulous. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Really and truly. Oh.
Did I hear you?
Okay.
And do you need male and female species to get the nice growth and red color?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay,
No,
I don't
so
bel-
the red's coming from sunlight. It's just photosynthesis. And usually when it has leaves, obviously the sun's not getting to the stems. So once they drop is when you'll start seeing color.
And then also the young growth on a red twig dogwood is a lot more vibrant than the more mature growth. So if yours starts getting brown, you could feel free to give that a really hard cut back and it'll just push out nice new red growth again.
Big growth?
It's probably 6 to 8 feet tall. The straight species is gonna sucker pretty quickly if it's in wet soil. For the smaller landscapes, I carry a variety called Bailey Eye, and that one just suckers a lot less and kind of stays more of a clump.
Do you need a male and female pussy willow to get those cat?
Yes, I just learned that this year. I just learned that, and I
Yes.
was like, I said, who grows these males? Because
I must have a male in my neighborhood then, right?
I
Because
would,
I'm
I would
getting
imagine there's
cat-ins.
plenty of, yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah, I just learned that this year. I just learned that this year, actually, so,
How would you recognize the male if it doesn't have, I guess.
because it doesn't, it doesn't look as cool.
As long as the lady knows where it is.
Yeah, Yeah. 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 Yeah,
Any other questions?
cool.
Great, well then let's get home before it starts to pour.
Thank you so much.
What a great talk. Thank you.
Was it?